So yesterday we have seen 15 questions. Now we'll be proceeding towards next questions, guys. Okay. Okay. So this is 16th question. Tell me some frameworks available in Java. Explain them in detail. See, this is whenever this question is asked, you get chance to explore yourself. You get chance to represent yourself in front of a interviewer. समझे? Because अगर आप इसका आंसर देते हो तो सबसे पहले ये जान लीजिए कि आंसर शॉर्ट में नहीं होगा, और जितना बोलोगे उससे आपका कम्युनिकेशन भी आगे वाले को चेक करने को मिलेगा और नॉलेज भी इन डेप्थ। और इस क्वेश्चन का देखो, अगर स्प्रिंग बताओगे तो उसने सिर्फ स्प्रिंग बोलने के लिए नहीं बोला, उसने क्या बोला? एक्सप्लेन देम इन डिटेल। मतलब ये लंबा क्वेश्चन है, तो उसको थोड़ा केयरफुली अच्छे से कीजिएगा इस क्वेश्चन को। टेल मी सम फ्रेमवर्क्स अवेलेबल इन जावा। तो ये जावा में फ्रेमवर्क्स नहीं है एक्चुअली, ये फ्रेमवर्क्स जो है जावा को इजी बनाने के लिए लाए गए हैं। जैसे कौन से फ्रेमवर्क हमें पता है, जो भी पता है लिखने का, स्प्रिंग हो गया, हाइबरनेट हो गया, दीज आर द फ्रेमवर्क्स व्हिच वी नो। स्प्रिंग बूट हो गया, हाइबरनेट, स्प्रिंग बूट, है ना। तो अब एक्सप्लेन करना है, हाउ यू विल बी एक्सप्लेनिंग? सी, you should be saying first of all hibernate. It's a replacement of JDBC. The hibernate is used to make things easy. Hibernate is used to make things easy for us. JDBC takes too much time to develop code. Instead of that, we have hibernate. Hibernate is a ORM tool. Hibernate is a ORM tool. Don't only tell difference between JDBC and hibernate, because this question has not asked what is difference between JDBC and hibernate. It has asked what is hibernate. It's like that. So you should say it's an ORM tool, easy for DB migration. We use dialect concept here. We use HQL in hibernate. Then go for Spring. In Spring there are multiple concepts like IOC we have, AOP we have, MVC we have. Again, there are a lot of concepts are there in the Spring. These all concepts makes your work easy. Then try to speak one line on each topic. Like IOC is used for dependency injection, AOP is used for advices, aspect J programming, MVC is for web framework. Then there is a Spring Boot which is used for making a REST APIs. Spring Boot uses Spring concepts. Spring Boot is a framework which boots a Spring, so that we do not need to write a boilerplate code. So that is how it is. Next, there will be a question called why to use Spring. क्या बोला है देखिए, why to use a Spring. Now again, these questions you need to prepare very well, guys, because again and again I'm telling you, here interviewer will check your maturity. These are not straightforward questions like where to use final variable, what is final. It's not like this question. Okay, this question has something different thing. Okay, this question has something different. It's very different. Okay, so why to use Spring? तो यहाँ पे आपको लिखना पड़ेगा why to use Spring. You can say Spring is used for making things easy. बहुत important point नहीं बोला, पर क्या बोल देना है, but to make things easy. In Spring there are different concepts like IOC, AOP, MVC. We can do that things by using an servlet JSP also, or simply core Java also. But if we use Spring, we get some inbuilt libraries which makes our things more and more easy. Let's say example of AOP. There you don't need to write a code. If you want to execute some code before some method, then easily you can use AOP. automatic configurations will be done. Let's say example of JDBC, it's a simple core Java. There you need to write multiple statements for making a connection and saving database into this thing. But if you use Spring Boot with Hibernate, you can directly inject session factory object. Okay. Spring is configuration based. Spring is configuration based, where we change one word, multiple things will get changed automatically. So that is how, that is why we need to use a Spring, and this is a trending framework right now. They are adding multiple libraries day by day in this, so that our task become more and more convenient, more easy to execute things. What is IOC in Spring? Explain in detail. IOC means inversion of control. IOC means inversion of control, where we try to create an object of a global variables, where we are injecting objects, where we are injecting objects. This is done by dependency injection. IOC uses dependency injection. Here one annotation is there, that is @AutoWire, where we inject classes by using an AutoWire. Automatically wiring will be done with the global variable, global reference variables. There is one more annotation is there, that is @qualifier. If any conflict is happening due to @AutoWire, then @qualifier will helps us to solve that conflict. In case of primitives, we have another option called @value. In case of primitives, we have another option called @value, where we can inject primitives from properties file, where we can inject values from the properties file. So loose coupling will be there if we use IOC, whereas tight coupling will be there if you create direct object. What is AOP in Spring? Explain detail. AOP is aspect J oriented programming. AOP means if you want to execute some code before or after of some logic, then we use AOP. In AOP, we use advices. There are some advices which are there to list out before, after, then, around, and throwable. Every advice have their different role. Before advice will be applied if you want to execute some code before. After advice will be applied if you want to execute some code after some logic. Around advice will be used if you want to execute some code before and after. Throwable advice will be used if you want to throw an exception, if you want to throw or some exception is thrown, and if you want to execute some code, then we use advices. So AOP is a good thing. Here there are some annotations like @advice. Then if you are using Spring Boot, then there is something enable proxy. This annotation is there. For before, we have before, like this annotation. So guys, see, if this question is asked, you get chance to represent yourself. This again and again I'm telling you. So don't be short in this. अगर इंटरव्यू 40 मिनट का है, मैं ये बार बार बोलता हूँ, ऐसे क्वेश्चंस पे आपको मौका लेना है, तो ऑटोमेटिकली 40 मिनट के 20 मिनट हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि ये बड़े बड़े जो क्वेश्चंस है ना, इनके जब आंसर देते हो ना, तो समय निकल जाता है, पता नहीं चलता। ये सब देखो कितने जेनेरिक क्वेश्चंस है, कितना भी बोलो तो कम ही है। इसलिए आज सब लोगों को ज्यादा से ज्यादा, आज बोलो या जब भी, अभी देखो, when I was telling about AOP, I'm not stopping. He has not asked me annotation to tell, but still I am started telling @advice, @enable proxy, aspect J something, ठीक है, like that. Aspect J ना. So kind of He has not asked me, tell me annotations of a before and all. I was telling. He didn't ask me types of advices, but I told this. Even I spend time on telling before, then after, then around. So like that trick you need to use to spend much and much time. Okay, so that is how it is, guys. It's simple. Don't worry. What is Spring MVC? Can we explain a flow? Yes. Can I explain the flow? Again, see, this is a big question. What your time you spend in this question is worthy. Worth. Why? Same thing. Uh, because if interviewer goes in the core Java, then you will not be maybe not able to handle because they are made with some tough questions. These are simple questions. So now you should be telling Spring MVC means model view controller, where we use JSP as a view, JSP as a view. Then you should say controller, which is used for having a controller is used for handling a request. Model is for setting data. Model is used for setting a data. In MVC, internally, dispatcher servlet plays a role. Dispatcher servlet plays a role. If you get time, if you have paper and pen, then you can draw in front of interviewer, like there is JSP, then request goes to dispatcher servlet, like that. Then request goes to dispatcher servlet. Then request goes to dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet navigates, look at the URL, and it goes to controller. It goes to controller. Then in controller, we can write some logic, we can get data, we can process that data. Then in model and view, here in method, we can have one class called model and view, where we can set model name or view name, which page needs to be navigated, and then that page will be rendered. Data will be sent from controller to JSP. Here in controller, we can call another class, maybe might be with the annotation services, service or DAO. There will be a class called DAO or repository at repository, where we might be integrating this database with the Hibernate, and from the data will get fetched. And this is how the flow is. So at top level, I would say request sent from the JSP goes to dispatcher servlet, then automatically controller will be found out, and from controller it goes to database, from database it comes back, and then it reaches to again JSP. In front end, you can use Angular also if it is needed. That's not a problem. So that is how Spring MVC. See guys, so like that, cool. Take pauses while giving answer. Don't just speak like a speech. Okay, थोड़ा सा पॉज लेना है, समझना है क्वेश्चन को, आराम से उसको स्टेप बाय स्टेप लेके जाना है. ठीक है. What is the difference between servlet JSP MVC and Spring MVC? Yeah, like this question, if somebody asks, means he want to know whether you are aware of this or not, whether you want to aware of this or not. Okay, so we should say MVC. Just say that. MVC means model view controller. MVC means model view controller. Where view is a JSP. We can use JSP in the both Spring MVC and Servlet JSP. In Servlet JSP and Spring, major difference you can see at the controller level. In Spring MVC, there is a controller which handles everything. In Servlet JSP, there is a servlet which handles everything. Then in servlet, there is a method called doGet doPost. In servlet, there is a method called doGet doPost. But whereas in Spring MVC, you don't need to write doGet doPost. Here you can have your own methods. Here there is an annotation like request mapping, get mapping, post mapping. All these annotations will be used in Spring. In Servlet, there is a at web servlet annotation, whereas in Spring, there is a at controller annotation is there. Spring MVC will also be a servlet JSP MVC only, where it is dispatcher servlet, which plays main role here. There's main role here. Then next, what all annotations in Spring explain. So this is now they said 5, so don't tell 5 only. If you have good knowledge, tell them 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is to show off your knowledge, but some of them like at auto wire explain also. Okay, at auto wire is for dependency injections. Then there are at value to inject this thing, to inject primitive Spring Boot application. This is used in Spring Boot. Okay, this is used in Spring Boot. If we are using REST API, then controller is there. Then there is a REST controller. So like that, see, these are the 5 annotations, but there are multiple: gate mapping, post mapping. But what is expected? See, talented and freshers, what happens now? Don't tell just gate mapping, post mapping, and update mapping. Interviewer will be considering all these annotations same. तो कैसा होना चाहिए? एक आप गेट मैपिंग, पोस्ट मैपिंग, पुट मैपिंग का बता दो, तो दूसरा एड सर्विस का बता दो, तीसरा एड कंपोनेंट बता दो, मतलब कुछ तो अलग अलग रहे. Then add bean bata do. So try to differentiate. But if you are not remembering anything, then obviously keep talking this gate mapping, post mapping, put mapping, okay, delete mapping, like that, request mapping. So like that you should be saying. Control, REST control are important. So now how to answer this? It's up to you how you answer this. It's up to you how you feel importance of every annotation, how you feel importance of every annotation, how you prioritize your answer. That is also your wish. Okay, so you need to prioritize. Priority, you must understand. Everybody will be able to give answer about this, but really these 3 things make sense? No, gate mapping is enough. Okay, when it has been asked about annotation, so be careful on this. But if you doesn't know anything, everything is perfect there. They need 5 annotation, you tell 5 annotation, finish. Now this is what is difference between Spring and Spring Boot. So you should say in Spring we can use multiple concept. All concept of Spring are used in Spring Boot, but Spring Boot, it is booting a Spring. Okay, means the boilerplate code or unnecessary code which we were writing in Spring was reduced in Spring Boot. For example, if you create application in Spring, you need external Tomcat. Whereas in Spring Boot, you don't need. Whereas in external Spring Boot, you don't need. It is internally embedded. So it's easy. There is application.properties file which automatically configured in a Spring Boot. In Spring, we need to configure properties file separately, whereas in Spring Boot we have inbuilt application.properties files where we have predefined keys which we can use for our configuration. So Spring Boot is easy to make things. Then what are the advantages of Spring Boot? Same thing again, application.properties file, keep telling this at Spring Boot application is an annotation of a main class which is used to configure everything. Everything will get booted by using this annotation. This annotation does everything. This is Spring Boot annotation, not Spring annotation. Main advantage is application.properties file you get here. This is advantage. Third, I would say Tomcat you get here. Tomcat you get here easily. And some of the annotations. Tomcat you get internally. So you don't need to worry about Tomcat is running or not running. Run the project and do the things. REST API makes simple. REST API will become a simple thing. Like this. Like this you should be aware of. Next. What is REST API? REST API, it's application programming interface. REST is a protocol. REST is a protocol like SOAP. REST supports JSON. Okay, REST supports a JSON, which is trending these days. JSON is a lightweight thing to REST is a lightweight thing. JSON is a lightweight thing to store a data. REST API requires endpoints to access. Okay. REST API also used to produce a API. In REST API, you can take data also. You can produce data also. REST API, we need to test on the Postman. Okay, Postman is a tool which is used for testing a REST API. So like that you should be telling. Tell everything whatever you know about REST API. Okay, no need to go into depth. How to develop REST API? There are multiple tools available to develop REST API. One of it is Spring Boot. In Spring Boot, to develop REST API, you need to design a controller with the REST controller annotation. Then you need to write one method where there will be logic, and that method will be annotated. With request mapping, gate mapping, post mapping, like that. So that mapping will get mapped with the endpoint. So whenever we hit an endpoint, this method will be called. And from this method, in this method, there will be Java code, which returns might be list of employee or something, but automatically it gets converted into JSON. There might be another way to produce. Some people might produce it in XML, but we need to produce which is used universally, that is in the form of JSON. How to no, this is done. What is web services? Web services are used to talk between two products. These two products might be in different languages. We need to communicate between them by using a data, and data might be a JSON or some data format, XML, JSON. These are the formats. So basically, web services we use to communicate between two products, two applications, two servers, where data will get transferred from one product to another product in the form of JSON or XML. To implement web services, we have REST APIs. In REST API, we can do both the things. This is one of things. Do you remember annotations in Spring Boot? That makes your things easy. Asking this question means really you worked or not. To check that. So you should say yes. There are multiple annotations. In Spring Boot, there is application.properties file also there, where a lot of properties are inbuilt, which also helps us to develop program easily. But here it is asked annotation about Spring Boot. So you can say this is a big annotation that you should remember. Spring Boot application. That is for main class. This is for main class, which is used for main class. If you use this annotation, then things will become easy. But again, this is how you answer. That depends on your practice, your work, really you solve some problems or not. What is use of properties file in Spring Boot? What is use of properties file in Spring Boot? Yeah, properties file will have some inbuilt properties like server.port, spring.mvc dot prefix, like this. There are some properties. Now guys, don't try to remember exact spelling. This is enough. Multiple people of industry, many people only remember this. All other things are copied and pasted. Okay, all other things are copied and pasted. So don't think like you should be remembering every word of it, but show that you worked on the projects. Okay, so 2-3 properties you can always tell. That is inbuilt properties of this thing, what it call application dot properties file. Okay. Yes. Yeah, here you can tell like database properties also you can set in Spring Boot. Automatically will get read, and automatically session factory objects will get injected session in the controller or DAO or service layer, wherever it is needed. So there are plenty of properties in Spring Boot which are mentioned in the application.properties file. We need to use predefined. We cannot write our own properties. If we are writing our own properties by using @value, we need to inject in a variables. If we are writing our own properties, these are all predefined. We cannot do anything in this. These are all predefined one. So we don't need to do anything in that. We don't need to do anything on that. So guys, remember all these things. Okay. Next. There is a next question. What is just a second, I'm copying. What is a runner main class in Spring Boot? What annotation you use in it? Multiple times I told in previous questions. Same thing, add Spring Boot application. And you need to tell like this is a starter class in Spring Boot which helps us to initialize other annotations like maybe component scan will be done by this annotation, but provided all classes are in the same package. That's it. So these are all guys. I tried to show you multiple questions. These are the questions. See, all questions I tried to cover, but here what matters is like how you explain, how much depth you know about it. Okay, so try practicing by yourself to give answers. Yeah, thank you.